Hello and welcome to TV Talks, the show where I take a look at both the good and the bad of what television has to offer. And today, I'm finally gonna say yes to all those requests coming in. It's time to take a look at the somewhat ever-popular Fox animated sitcom, Family Guy. Bet you can just hear the joy radiating from my voice right now, and not many different ways of planning escapes. And I think I just gave away what I think of this show. But let's start from the beginning. In late January of 1999, Seth MacFarlane, who had previously worked on some Hanna-Barbera shows like Johnny Bravo, or trying to make his own show, Larry and Steve, on the What a Cartoon Show, Seth had finally created his own show, Family Guy, and premiered on Fox. But it was a little hard making the show at first. At first it was going to be a thing called Larry and Steve, which was basically just a man and his dog story, which was basically going to be about Peter Griffin and Brian Griffin, although their names were Larry and Steve. Who would have guessed? He tried pitching the show around and constantly got rejected, including pitching it to Weird Al. Apparently, as the Weird Al show was still up, according to Al on the DVD commentary for one of the episodes of the Weird Al show, so like what the Tracy Ullman show was to the original Simpsons shorts, it looks like the Weird Al show was originally planned to be that for Family Guy. However, Al didn't think that the Family Guy cast really suited the Weird Al show, specifically with its adult humor and style of writing, which greatly contrasted his. And of course that turned out to be a good idea, because had they gone with this, Family Guy probably wouldn't have went anywhere considering the Weird Al show's incredibly short lifespan. Although, saying that, now I kind of wish he did take that deal. Family Guy premiered in 1999 to pretty decent reviews and ratings. Nothing fantastic, but it did get a following pretty quickly. Until the third season, after low ratings and consistent time slot changes, the show was cancelled. And fans let their voices be heard in droves by buying the DVDs and sending all rerun ratings through the roof and constantly writing into Fox demanding that they bring the show back. So then they did. And everything went downhill from there. Not just in my opinion, everyone else's too. Many people cite the first 3 seasons as being good, and then everything else after that taking a real dive. Me? I'll get to that in a minute, but what's the show about? It's basically just The Simpsons, but raunchier. It's about a big fat idiot named Peter, his sex-starved wife, Lois, his son with no personality, Chris, his whipping mule daughter who started off as just a regular no-personality teenage girl, Meg, his evil baby with severe ego issues and massive intelligence named Stewie, and his dog that does stuff named Brian. Brian is a bit weird, as he started off as just an alcoholic dog who was kind of Peter's confidant, and then he turned into just Seth MacFarlane, but more on that in a minute. Family Guy has very easy style of writing, and we all know this from 2 things that it does: pop culture references and sex jokes. Now, of course, both of these can work well, but with the abundance that Family Guy does it, it's expected that there's going to be some duds here and there. But the jokes they make are just so easy. It's basically just, fart, boob. That's basically the joke, is that they say dirty things and they don't really amount to it. Or we see characters doing terrible things, like committing self-harm or harming others. That's the joke. There's no real joke to it. It's just, oh, it's funny because Peter shot Quagmire. That's the joke. Laugh at it. Then, of course, there's the pop culture stuff, which, of course, pop culture is always very tricky to pull off in any show, because pop culture, popular culture, is about what's popular at the time. Or at least it's supposed to be. So naturally, it's expected that some of the stuff later on down the road wouldn't be so funny, because it wouldn't make much sense. Well, Family Guy's not worried about that, because sometimes they dip into pop culture for stuff that nobody's even ever heard of. They'll make references to, actors like Michael Moore or Joe Pesci and then say, oh yeah, you don't know who that is because you're 14, or at least that was just in one episode. And again, like the sex jokes, it's basically just, hey look, it's Kevin Bacon. Oh look, it's John Goodman. That's the joke. Nowhere is this more prevalent than in their infamous cutaway gags. So many times throughout these episodes, they just stop the plot just to have these random non sequiturs that last about sometimes 15 seconds to 30 seconds, sometimes even a whole minute if you're really unlucky. They have nothing to do with anything. They're just random jokes that happen. It's basically just, you think that's bad? Remember when I auditioned to be David Hasselhoff's car? Thank you, South Park. Which, yes, that South Park gag is barely an exaggeration of what this show does. And there's multiple in each episode. So the humor is already really weak, considering the fact that it's just pop culture jokes that anyone could make. And also completely ill-formatted, raunchy humor, but how are the characters? Flat and lifeless. There's an important thing that every show needs to have in order for you to care about your characters. And it's consistency. Characters need to stay consistent, have a same set of personality traits and motives and desires. Family Guy breaks this all the time. I can't count how many out-of-character moments I have seen, and I've seen about, 26 episodes in total in my seemingly never-ending search to find why this is so popular. Even though I don't like the earlier seasons, I will admit that the characters were at least a bit more well put together. Like, Peter actually did care about his family, Lois was just kind of a typical caring wife, and Meg wasn't such a whipping mule. But now, it's just kind of nothing. Peter can be whatever the plot wants him to be, and Lois is just callous and ignorant a lot of the time, but the levels of which change all the time. Brian sometimes resembles his old personality of being just kind of every man with an extreme ego and a bit of a superiority complex, but oftentimes he's just Seth MacFarlane's mouthpiece for spewing out his nonsensical propaganda. That's not a couple times either, no, this has become the norm for Brian. Then of course there's Meg, who aside from being abused doesn't really have a personality, and then there's Chris, who's just kind of there. Because the humor is so easy, you can expect the characters to be easy too. They can change everything on the turn of a dime. And if they're not sedentary or have no real growth, depth, or stability to them, why even bother caring about them? So when they try to do serious things like Screams in Silence or Seahorse Seashell Party, I don't care. I don't care about these characters. All they are just joke machines. They're just there to reference Kobe Bryant or Jerry Seinfeld or farts or sex or anything like that. They're not characters. And it's no better in the supporting cast. Here, let's run through some of them. Quagmire, he likes sex. That's his personality. Joe is handicapped. That's his personality. Cleveland is black. That's his personality. The mayor is corrupt, and now he is dead. That's his personality. Mort is Jewish. That's his personality, and so on and so forth. They're just jokes. They're just walking jokes. Yet the show expects us to care about them, resonate with them, and even learn from them. I'm sorry, that's not how it works. Especially when your humor is clearly your main focus here. So already we're not really supposed to resonate with the characters, but again, the humor is so broken, you can't even resonate with that. And then of course we have to address the elephant in the room with Family Guy constantly trying to up themselves in crudity and controversial content. It seems like every season there's always 1, 2, 7 episodes where they do terrible things, like Fresh Air, or the whole Brian is dead arc. They just seek out to do terrible, horrible things that have no real purpose aside from shock value and to bring people in because, people like shocking things, we'll bring them in because we're going to do something super controversial. The problem with that, though, is there's a thing called shock fatigue. When people are exposed to shocking material enough, they get tired of it, especially from the same outlet. Funny enough, there's actually a surprising analogy that I have to use, and it's a SpongeBob episode called Ghost Host. You guys remember that one? Season 4, the Flying Dutchman moves into SpongeBob's house and constantly scares him. And then eventually SpongeBob just gets kind of tired of the Flying Dutchman. He's just there. That's kind of what Family Guy is. Yeah, sure, they're upping themselves in crudity and nonsense and celebrity references and, of course, just absolutely insane, vulgar, I don't want to watch this content. But a lot of people are getting kind of tired of it because it's just expected that, oh yeah, Peter's going to mangle a baby. Of course they're going to make fun of that greased up deaf guy. Of course Chris is going to perform sexual acts with his sister. We've seen this before. And it's sad to say that, especially that last one, we're used to it. It doesn't make a dent anymore. There's no reason to watch it. Even those who are shocked by the terrible things they say and do, I'm sure they're going to get tired of it. Because that's it. That's all that it is. And that's why Family Guy is my least favorite show of all time. I cannot fathom how this is popular. Everything this show can do moderately right, at least 10 other shows do it better. Even The Simpsons now, in its current boring zombie state, I still think is at least better, because at least it still tries to have some dignity and not stooping to lowest common denominator shock value in order to get ratings. Most of the time. There's other little problems as well, like Seth MacFarlane's voice acting getting really annoying, or the stilted, unmoving animation that apparently takes over a year to finish. This whole thing is just kind of a waste in my eyes. Seth MacFarlane can be funny, but only when he has people breathing down his neck and telling him what to do. Normally, I'm all for the artist and creator's interpretation and free reign. But in the case of him, I think he's definitely one that needs to be restrained. I mean, look at Larry and Steve or his Johnny Bravo work. That stuff is hilarious. He clearly knows what he's doing, but he just needs someone to hold him back. That's, of course, why I give Family Guy the Scallion seal of disapproval. Yes, like I said, this is my least favorite show of all time. There may be seasons of shows I hate more, like Drawn Together Season 3, but for a show as a whole, this is it. I hate this show, with every fiber of my being. I don't understand its fandom. I don't understand how it's still being renewed despite the falling ratings, or at least I think they're falling, so the reports say. It's just one of those I just can't get. But, you know, maybe it's not for everyone. It's not like a majority of critics online hate it or anything. No. I just don't get it. What do you guys think of Family Guy? Is it bad or really bad? Comment below, let me know, and I'll see you next time. Good night, everybody. Ugh, I gotta wash my brain out so I can forget all the stuff I saw.